Hello there, I'm Father Ed Nadolny from the Father Nadolny Good News Fund. Welcome to a very special show. I'm going to divide the show into two parts. One is going to be a half-hour show, a presentation of abortions productions. How are abortions actually taking place between the first semester, second semester, and third semester? It's animated, so it's very well done and very delicately done. And then after the show of the DVD, I'd like to have you call me, write down this number, 860-335-2342. And a reaction to the DVD or whatever question that you have. So just I ask you to relax and look at this. And if you have other people with you, watch this very educational DVD on abortion procedures. You know, we have a lot of comment about Joe Biden today because he did something and it was terrible. People are getting arrested because of dog abuse. But there's no law that's going to say that abortion is immoral or illegal in our country. So I'd like to get your humble opinion, and I know you're proud of your humility. So we're going to show this movie, this DVD right now, and then ask you to comment and call me at 860-335-2342. That's my cell phone number, 860-335-2342. Okay, let's sit back and enjoy this very educational DVD on abortion procedures.
Supreme Court legalized abortion for the full term of pregnancy for any reason or virtually no reason. Millions of unborn babies have been brutally denied the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Procured abortion is the unjust and violent taking of an innocent person's life. The Pro-Life Action League of Chicago holds conferences every year entitled Meet the Abortion Providers. At these conferences, former abortionists who have joined the pro-life movement tell their stories about what it was like killing babies and why they quit doing abortions. In this tape, we will meet these former abortion assistants, clinic owners, and doctors as they tell us precisely what abortion is. Let us listen to Carol Everett as she discusses the counseling given at the abortion mills.
Hey, let's talk about those kids when they find out that they are pregnant. They may not want an abortion. They may want information. But when they call that number that's paid for by abortion money, what kind of information do you think they're going to get? Let's remember they sell abortions. They don't sell keeping the baby. They don't sell giving the baby up for adoption. They don't sell delivering that baby in any form. They only sell abortions. I cannot tell you one thing that happens in an abortion clinic that is not a lie.
It's a lie when they tell you that they're doing it to help women, because they're not. They're doing it for the money.
So this girl calls this number and says, I'm pregnant. Well, how far along are you? What's the first day of your last normal period? And they've got their wheel there and they figure it out. Now this counselor is paid to be this girl's friend. She is paid to be the authority for this girl. She is supposed to seduce her into a friendship of sorts to sell her the abortion.
I was trained by a professional marketing director how to sell abortions over the telephone. This man came into our clinic and he took every one of our receptionists, all of the nurses, anyone that would be on the phone, and he took us through an extensive training period where we learned how to sell abortions over the telephone so that when the girl called, we hooked the sale. So she wouldn't go down the street and get an abortion somewhere else, and so that she wouldn't adopt out her baby or so that she wouldn't change her mind. We were doing it to get her money. It was for the money.
And then there are two reactions in the recovery room. The first one is, I've killed my baby. And even then, it amazed me that that was the first time they called it a baby and the first time they called it murder. But the second reaction is, I am hungry. You kept me in here for 4 hours and you told me I'd only be here for 2. Let me out of here. Now that woman is doing what I did. She's running from her abortion. She's not dealing with it. She's choosing to deny it. And she's the woman that we read all the statistics about post-abortion syndrome. They say now it's an average of 5 years before people actually deal with the fact that, yes, they did kill their baby. And yes, they do have to deal with that. The 21-year-old that danced in, and I'll never forget her as long as I live, she was my son's age, danced in to get her problem taken care of, had the extra money to be put to sleep. And you see, my job with 2 of those doctors was to put my right hand on the baby and hold it while they did the abortion so I could tell them where the head was and where the legs were and all of that. And I had my hand on that woman's stomach. And that baby was perfectly inside her uterus. She had been examined by the doctor, and he said, yes, the baby was inside her uterus and everything was fine, and she was 24 weeks. And he went in one time, and he pulled out placenta. And he went in the second time, and he went through the back of her uterus and pulled her bowel out through her vagina. And we put her in the car because we didn't want an ambulance in front of the abortion clinic, and we took her to the hospital. And 7 doctors worked on her, and they did a colostomy on her. And when the reports came back, they said that it was an abdominal pregnancy, that it had not been in the uterus, and 7 doctors and a pathologist concurred with that. And then the hospital wrote off her bill, and there was no lawsuit, ever. She was told that would have been a normal complication. It was just amazing that she had made it that long, and she didn't know any better.
We can't eliminate abortions entirely. We can eliminate legal abortions, but safe legal abortions is a euphemism.
Now let us hear what encourages the doctors to perform abortions and what effects the women's rights movements have had on doctors.
The media was very active early on. It really was probably one of the major influences to us. It told us that abortion was, number one, legal, that it was to serve women, it was to give women a choice, more or less give them a freedom to grow and to take their rightful place in society where they had been kind of pushed down prior to that. We believed the lie that there were tens of thousands of women being maimed and killed from illegal abortions prior to the legalization of abortion law, and we all just kind of, it kind of made things feel a little bit better.
You are working hard to support the rights of women. What in the hell is wrong with the other 750,000 little girls who got ground up in suction machines every year? I think at least in part it's because people don't know.
Medical technology has greatly aided in examining the unborn child. Ultrasound is often used by abortionists. It helps them to be able to see where the baby is positioned in order to carry out the abortion procedure.
But as we all know from the silent scream, the technology of ultrasound has the ability to open a window into the womb. When a woman sees her own baby moving on the screen, it has a profound influence on her, and I believe this is the technology which should be utilized as much as is possible. The abortionists also know that ultrasound can be a valuable tool in performance of an abortion for another reason. Dr. Sally Dorfman reported on the use of ultrasound during abortion at the annual meeting of the American Public Health Association of 1986. She recommended that it be used in all abortions performed after 12 weeks to accurately assess fetal age as a teaching tool and as a means of enhancing safety. It's interesting that they're doing all these things to enhance safety when it's such a safe procedure before they started using it. It is interesting also that she has warned against letting the patient see the image on the screen as, quotes, seeing a blown-up, moving image of the embryo she is carrying can be distressing to a woman who is about to undergo an abortion. She stressed that the screen should be turned away from the patient. She also addressed its effect on staff members and stated that they may need opportunities for venting their feelings and for reconfirming their priorities. What they really need to do is to look at the moving image on the screen and realize that they're about to take the life of a living human being.
We use that ultrasound machine on a daily basis, And again, it's like I say, yes, as a doctor, you know that these are children, you know that these are human beings with arms and legs and heads, and they move around and they're very active. But you get reminded every time you put that scanner down on somebody's uterus, you're reminded, because you see the children in there, hearts beating, arms flinging. We have a ball with it. It's a lot of fun.
But I think the greatest thing that got to us was the ultrasound. That time, the ultrasound, or the sound wave picture, which was moving, called real-time ultrasound, showed the baby really on TV. The baby really came alive on TV and was moving. And that picture of the baby on the ultrasound bothered me more than anything else. Because, as I didn't know then really, you bond with that picture. Women get those pictures even if they're still pictures, and boy, that's their baby, and they put it up on walls, they bring it in to show it to me. And the nurses that had to help with this had to look at this to stage how far along the D&E was, because you got paid more if it was, 16 weeks, if it was more if it was 18 weeks, and so on. In other words, the larger the pregnancy, the more you got paid. And the more the clinic got also. So it was very important for us to do that, and to make sure they weren't too large for us to do when we started. We lost 2 nurses. They couldn't take looking at it. Some other staff lost. The turnover got greater, when we started doing the D&Es, and mostly, as I said, the ultrasounds. So I think the ultrasound was one of the keys there. The other thing, too, is, of course, the women who are having the abortions are never allowed to look at the ultrasound. And because we knew even if they heard the heartbeat, that many times they wouldn't have the abortion. And then, we didn't want that, no money in that.
Is abortion a lie? Does it promise a better life, or does it deliver death? Let us hear then what it is all about and what really happens to both the baby and the mother in an abortion.
Because a lot of people don't know what abortion is about. They don't know what is being aborted, and they don't know how it's being done.
I used to think of abortion as eliminating a problem instead of killing a baby.
I killed my baby, and I'm still not through that. And how difficult it is for all these women. Because you see, I believe every woman, even if she's not physically harmed, is harmed by abortion.
And I would work up there, and this woman forced her daughter to come in there, and she was a second trimester, probably about 15 weeks. And they had inserted the laminaria the day before, and she was in there, and she was miserable, that poor girl was. And she was really upset, and she kept going to the bathroom, and obviously there was something wrong with her physically. And when she went into the bathroom the next time, all of a sudden she started screaming at the top of her lungs, "It's a baby! It's a baby! Mama, mama, mama!" And she was screaming at the top of her lungs in the middle of our clinic that she's going to be scarred emotionally from having seen that baby in the toilet, because that's where it landed.
I was told that one of the pro-life problems is that we talk too much about the babies being ripped apart. We show terrible pictures. We dwell on these too much. Well, what are we supposed to do? This is the reality of abortion. I'm there to tell them the truth. Babies are being ripped up. Yes, these babies do look like this after an abortion. And yes, it does hurt your baby. And most of all, it does affect the woman.
There are no words to describe how bad it really is. It kills the baby. And yes, I've seen sonograms with the baby pulling away from the instruments as they're introduced into the vagina. And I've seen D&Es through 32 weeks done without the mother being put to sleep. And yes, they hurt, and they are very painful to the baby, but yes, they're very, very painful to the woman. I've seen 6 people hold a woman on the table while they did her abortion.
My job was to take the baby and to take it into the lab. We would take it out of the little sack, lay it in the pan. The doctor would then come in and examine it. If he felt that it was adequate enough tissue, we would take the baby, put it into a jar, and send it to the lab if she had insurance. If she had no insurance, the baby was just simply put down the garbage disposal.
Oftentimes, second trimester abortions were performed, and these babies we would not put in the little jar with the label to send off to the pathology lab. We would put them down a flushing toilet, and that's where we would put these babies. They knew that they couldn't turn them in or they were going to be found out that they were doing abortions which were too big.
What did we do for fetal disposal? Well, they basically put them down the garbage disposal if they were small enough, and that was what we did. We hardly ever sent anything to the laboratory for pathology unless there was something weird going on and the doctor wanted to make sure he wouldn't get sued. That was the only reason he sent it, was to keep from getting sued. And then, of course, we started giving them the larger babies to the University of Texas Health Science Center. Right before I left, Dr. Boyd had made an agreement with a doctor, and I cannot name this doctor because I just don't think it would be wise to name him today, but he was the director of fetal research at the University of Texas Health Science Center at that time, and he had made an agreement with this doctor to give him our large babies for him to do fetal research on. And they did this, and I believe at the time it was against the law. Now, I don't know if it is now, and I'm not familiar with the legal terms because I'm not a lawyer, but I remember we were told not to tell anyone, and they only came in secret to get the babies.
The other abortion is a saline, which is after 16 weeks of pregnancy. This has to be done in the hospital because of complications that can arise. Not that they can't arise during other times, but more so now. The saline is injected into the woman's sac, and the baby swallows the saline, and it's a salt solution. And the baby starts dying a slow, violent death. The mother feels everything. And many times it's at this point when she realizes, or she's facing reality, that she really has a live baby inside of her, because the baby starts fighting violently for his life. He's running, just fighting inside because he's burning.
No more with the saline. You trade one kind of brutality for another. Well, I'll tell you one thing about D&E, you never have to worry about a baby being born alive. And that's one positive aspect of it, perhaps, if you want to put it that way. If any of you don't know what D&E is all about, I'm not going to describe it other than say, as a doctor, you're sitting there tearing, and I mean tearing, you need a lot of strength to do it, arms and legs off of babies and putting them in a stack on top of a table. If any of you don't know what a D&E is or what it looks like, I'm going to strongly refer you to Dr. Nathanson's film, Eclipse of Reason. I think it's an absolutely superb piece of work, and when that film's over, you're going to know what D&E is all about.
Because you see, when the babies are so big, they don't come apart like the others. They come up, the muscle structure is so strong that the heads come off from the body, and you can't dispose of those in the disposal. You have to put those in the trash.
The baby's bones were far too developed to rip them up with this curette, and so he had to try to pull the baby out with forceps, which he brought about 3 or 4 major pieces, and then he scraped and suctioned and scraped and suctioned, and there this little baby boy was laying on the tray, and his little face was perfectly formed, just like the sign you saw, perfectly formed. Little eyes were closed and little ears, and everything was perfect about this little boy.
There was one incident where a white piece came out, and I asked the doctor later on what it was, and it was the baby's skull. And I can still, to this very day, hear the crushing noise of that baby's skull being crushed.
When the babies would be put in the jars, we would hold them up and we'd kind of twirl them around and look at the little arm, and the leg float up, and we'd go, ooh, and we'd put it back in the box. And as sick as that sounds, that's the way it was. It's the way it is a lot of places right now.
Let us listen to these former abortionist stories.
As part of my training, I was taught to do abortions. So I've never been involved in a large-scale abortion mill, a business that was, and it is a business, don't kid yourselves, a business that was set up with the sole purpose of performing abortions. My experiences are perhaps a little more universal in terms of obstetricians and gynecologists in the country who were trained to do abortions during their residencies and then continue doing so as a part of their private practice, but not even the major part. Certainly it was never a major part of our private practice. We're going crazy trying to find a baby to adopt, and here we are, so we started desperately looking for a baby to adopt, and I'm throwing them in the garbage at the rate of 9 and 10 a week. And it even occurred to me then, it's like, I wish one of these people would just let me have their child. But it doesn't work that way. We were lucky. It still took 4 months. We had adopted a healthy little girl. And we were satisfied. We called her Heather. Why a doctor changes his mind is, we can talk about why doctors do abortions, and I think that the reasons tend to be more or less universal. But why doctors change their mind, I think is, my guess at least, is very personal. I think it's going to be very different from one doctor to the next. As I said, my reasons for quitting were a lot more personal, but maybe, I hope, you can draw something from it. Life was good until June 23rd, 1984. On that date, we had, I was on call, but I was at home at the time, and we had some friends over, and our children were playing in the back of the yard. And at 7:25 that evening, we heard the screech of brakes out in front of the house. We ran outside, and Heather was lying in the road. We did everything we could, and she died. Let me tell you something. When you lose a child, your child, life is very different. Everything changes. And all of a sudden, the idea of a person's life becomes very real. It's not an embryology course anymore. It's not just a couple of $100. It's the real thing. It's your child you buried. And the old discomforts came back in spades. I couldn't even think about a D&E abortion anymore. No way. And then you start to realize this is somebody's child. I lost my child. Someone who was very precious to us. And now I'm taking somebody's child and I'm tearing them right out of their womb. I'm killing somebody's child. That's what it took to get me to change. I began to feel like, my own sense of self-esteem went down the tubes. I began to feel like a paid assassin. That's exactly what it was. You watch the movies, somebody goes up to somebody, pays them some money to kill somebody. That's exactly what I was doing. And when my own sense of self-esteem went down the drain, that was all it took. It's still old habits die hard. But it got to a point, and Sis and I talked about it together, that it just wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it to me anymore. The money wasn't worth it. Poor women, my butt. I don't care. This is coming out of my hide. It's costing me too much. It's costing me too much personally, or all the money in the world wouldn't have made any difference. So I quit.
So I was able to go off to Memphis, Tennessee, where the medical school was, and start studying about this human body of ours so fearfully and wonderfully made, and I really believed all the trash those secular humanists were telling me, that we were not a special creation of God, that instead we had evolved up out of the mud, a la Darwin, and this was all just accidentally put together. I made my decision to be an abortionist right here in this city back in 1969. And I really felt like these women ought to have a safe abortion, and I would provide it. I think my coming out of the abortion situation, I've heard other people talk about their experiences, and it seems to be sort of similar. It doesn't happen all at once. I would go in and meet my well-counseled patient. I would examine her, and then I would do the suction D&C procedure under a paracervical block. After it was all over, I would leave my patient on the table, and I would go over to the suction bottle, and I would take the little stockinette out. I'd go outside the room to the sink where I'd open this stockinette up, and I personally would pick through it with the forceps, and I would have to identify, 4 extremities and a spine and a skull and the placenta. If I didn't find that, I would have to go back in that room and scrape and suction some more, or else my patients would be showing up in 48 to 72 hours, just like those women at Cook County with an infected, incomplete abortion. And standing at that sink, I guess I just started seeing these bodies for the first time. I don't know what I did before that. I think I just counted. I was cool, you know, blood didn't make me sick. I could handle all the guts and gore of medicine just fine. But I started seeing this for the first time, and it started bothering me.
And I can remember that day watching the first abortion with the resident doctor sitting down and putting the tube in and removing the contents. And I saw the bloody material coming down the plastic tube, and it went into a big jar. First one. I'd never seen one before. I didn't know what to expect. Well, it was my job afterwards to go and undo the jar and see what was inside. Well, it was kind of neat, you know, learning about a new experience. I wasn't a Christian. I didn't have any views on abortion. I was in a training program. This was a brand new experience. I'm going to get to see a new procedure and learn, and that was exciting. And it got more exciting as I opened the jar and took the little piece of stocking and opened that little bag, and the resident doctor said, now put it on that blue towel and check it out. We want to make sure that we got it all. And I thought, oh, that'll be exciting, hands-on experience looking at tissue. And I opened the sock up and I put it on the towel, and there were parts in there of a person. I'd taken anatomy. I was a medical student. I knew what I was looking at. There was a little scapula and an arm, and I saw some ribs and a chest, and I saw a little tiny head, and I saw a piece of a leg, and I saw a tiny hand, and I saw an arm, and you know, it was like somebody put a hot poker into me. I believe that God gives us all a conscience, and I wasn't a Christian, but I had a conscience, and that hurt. So I checked it out, and there were 2 arms and 2 legs and 1 head and so forth, and I turned and said, I guess you got it all. And that was a very hard experience for me to go through emotionally. If I'd been a Christian against abortion, it would have been simple. I wouldn't have been there. And if I'd been excited and wanted to do them, and excited about the money that I may make later in practice, I would have been on the opposite end. But here I was with no real convictions, caught in the middle. And so I did what a lot of us do throughout our life. We don't do anything. I didn't talk with anybody about it. I didn't talk with my folks about it. I didn't think about it. I didn't look in the Bible because I wasn't a Christian, and so I did nothing. And you know what happened? I got to see another abortion. And you know what? That one hurt too. But I didn't do anything again, and so I kept seeing abortions. And you know what? It hurt a little bit less every time I saw one. And you know what happened next? I got to sit down and do one. Because you see one, you do one, and you teach one, as Dr. Hill mentioned. Well, the first one that I did was kind of hard. It was like hurting again, like a hot poker. But after a while, it got to where it didn't hurt. My heart got calloused. My heart was calloused against the fact that I was a murderer. I was just simply uncommitted.
Now I'm going to stand here and tell you that I am a murderer. I have taken the lives of innocent babies, and I have ripped them from their mother's wombs with a powerful vacuum instrument. And when they were too big to do it in that way, I've injected a concentrated salt solution into the bag of waters to slowly and painfully poison them, and then to cause labor to follow. As I close my presentation today, it should be obvious to you that my participation in abortion was not as an avid abortion proponent. but as a reluctant puppet in a world gone berserk. Unfortunately, there are many such puppets today without the courage to admit that what they're doing is wrong. And every year there are more puppet physicians and nurses who are added to this number. I've had the opportunity to speak to groups of medical students and nurses in training, and my advice to them has always been, when they're asked to provide abortion services and to get involved, they should simply say no from the beginning.
This is Father Ed Nadali from the Father Nadali Good News Fund. And if you're allowed to have a question for me, just call me on my cell phone. And I don't usually give my cell phone to anyone except those who watch the billboards. I've got about 12 billboards with my number, 860-335-2342. 860-335-2342. I've been talking about the question of abortion. Well, after 60 years of a priest, I can honestly say I've never had a woman come to me who's had an abortion and did it freely. You know, for us, a mortal sin is a serious thing. An abortion has got to be, you got to know what you're doing, and also it has to be a free act. And many times, most people really don't know what they're doing, especially young teenagers. But the biggest reason why I find abortion is objectively always a mortal sin, no question. You're taking an innocent life. But also, in order for it to be a mortal sin, it has to be a free act. And I can honestly say, over my 60 years of hearing abortions in my life, I've never really had anybody come in and say, Father, I did it my way, as Frank Sinatra would say, and no one else forced me to do it, but I did it. I wanted to do it. And I've never had that. I've had a 16-year-old girl come in to see me who was pregnant, and she was brought in by a couple who just had an abortion, and they woke up to find out what it was. And then they ended up bringing her to me. And I said, well, tell your mother will be upset, but you're only 16. You should tell your mother. So she did, and her mother, who was such a wonderful Catholic, when I called back on a Saturday night, she says she's having an abortion. So this kid did not want an abortion. You don't come to see me and get an abortion. She was forced to have it. But anyone has a question, call me at 860-335-2342. 860-335-2342. Ask me any question you have, because you know I have an answer for everything. Not always the right answer, but I do have an answer. So I'd love to hear you. And if you have time, think about somebody in your life who's had an abortion, and how did they react to it before, during, and after. One person explained it very well. Is they've got, a woman comes in, or a girl comes in, she's got tunnel vision. All she sees is the problem of an abortion, of keeping the baby. And all she has, a tunnel vision. I've got to go to college. I'll lose my job. My husband will find out. And she never has time to think about her motherhood. But her motherhood, the natural part, will come in later. And then you have the problems. I've had people who've had abortions 14 years, and they blame the husband because the boyfriend said, you better have an abortion or I won't marry you. I've seen the people guilty after 20 years, still bothering them, especially on the so-called birthday of the child. So if you have a comment, call me at 860-335-2342. Or if you could, you have a question, I'd love to hear from you. Now, one thing I've got a friend of mine who's in Haiti, and he's a doctor and he's a priest at the same time. By the way, a lot of people have asked me about the different types of billboards that I have, and I have a picture of them. Some of them. I love you, Jesus, and Jesus forgive me. I love you, Mary, Jesus, have mercy on me. So maybe you can get some, see it. I love you, Jesus, and Jesus, forgive me, and I love you, Mary, and Jesus, have mercy on me. This one, Jesus, have mercy on me, I had on 84 going east. Mary, I love you. I've got her on Route 9, and I've also have her on Route 84 near Waterbury. Jesus, forgive me. That's the most popular one. I have that one on, where am I? On 91 South. And Jesus, forgive me. And Jesus, I love you. I have that everywhere. And one of the things I do get is I get a lot of telephone calls, many of them for prayers, like the woman who had just found out she had 4th degree cancer, and she saw my billboard, Jesus, I trust in you, and it gave her tremendous help. Or there's somebody who had a problem with adultery, and they need to go to confession. Or someone else whose son is in jail because of drugs. Or someone else who's got a sexual problem and needs to go to confession. Someone else who needs a job. Someone else who needs a place. Someone else who needs the oil tanker fixed. So I get all kinds of calls from all kinds of people. So if you have, I'd like to get a call from you. So why don't you call me at 860-335-2342. That's 860-335-2342. And I told you I have a friend of mine in Haiti. He's a priest, but he's also a doctor. And let's see if I get one of his, periodically I get an email from him, if I can get this one without the phone falling. Let's see. Oh, here it is. This is from Father Frechette. And I just want to read this story, a letter I got from him. When I returned to St. Damien Hospital in Haiti at about 5 p.m. yesterday afternoon, after spending the day buying medicine for our hospitals, there was a woman in the hallway holding a small child and said something was very wrong. She was not crying, but her face revealed a strained panic. Her 1-year-old daughter, while seemingly asleep in her arms, was, to my eyes, lifeless. The child was dead, and that this poor mother could not accept it. I noticed her ragged dress, her bare feet with dried streaks of mud. I was not sure what to do, how to approach her denial. I needed to respect her deep distress and find a way to help her. I quietly asked her name, Bertina, she said. I asked the name of her child, Sabina, she said. I asked if she was here to see a doctor. She said she did already, but the doctor was very wrong. I asked how the doctor was wrong, and she said, he thinks that Sabina is dead. I placed my hands on the child's head, caressed her hair. I ran my hands over Sabina's small chest. Sabina was dead. I felt the muscles of restrained agony tightening in my face. I said, why did you bring Sabina to the hospital? She said she could not breathe. Then she imitated the agony gasps of air, and explained how Sabina's ribs sank with every breath. I said gently, Bettina, I see clearly how loving of a mother you are and how much you are trying to help Sabina. It seems like before you could help her, sickness grew too strong for her small body. She fought for days to breathe, to live, and you did the best for her. But Sabina has gone to God. Bertina said, she's still warm. She hasn't gone anywhere. And she started to blow into Sabina's mouth as God had done for Adam. Bertina gave Sabina life by bringing her into this world. And being fully tied to her by love, I was trying to give her life a second time. I brought Sabina to sit with me at the office. During the course of the next 2 hours, she snuggled Sabina to her neck, rocked her on her lap, blew often into her nostrils, massaged her back. Over this time, we spoke of many things softly, and all the while Sabina's feet and hands, then arms and legs, and then chest grew cold. Wilfo was there, and Farrell. Soon came Faduel and Marie, and the nurses, Nurse Etna and Sonia. The women who are mothers tried to convince Bertina to give Sabina to them so she could return to children waiting for her at home. She would not let Sabina out of her arms. I said, Bertina, all of us hope with you that Sabina wakes up. We'd be very so happy with you if she did, but she is cold. She blew for a last time into her nostrils. I thought of the gospel reading of the morning. Jesus tried to heal a blind man with his spittle and powerful prayer. Can you see now? He asked. The man answered, I see people, but they look like trees. More spittle and another prayer solved that. Bertina seemed to live out this gospel story in this vesper hour of the same day. With just a little more help, the miracle will happen, just like it did for Jesus. It seems sometimes providence needs a little push. Bertina has the same spirit as Jesus in her blood, but for Sabina, the miracle was not destined to be. Bertina's husband came by then, and her sister, an oldest child. Sabina was now cold as stone. With great wailing, she finally accepted that death, had given her little child, and gave Sabina's body to me. I asked her to come back to see me, which she did today. We spoke for a while, and we gave them some help to pay for the funeral. I see Bertina as strong and noble. She will need those virtues for the many years to come. Her other 3 children are still very young. This is the kind of thing that happens when roads are blocked with violence, when hatred rules the streets, when mothers are afraid to risk the roads with their sick children. We have had a few calmer days with minimal riots, and Bertina finally could come to the hospital with Sabina today. When the nurses asked why she didn't come early in the morning, she said that morning was her only chance to pass 2 weeks to fill her buckets, barrels, and jars with water. She had no water for her children. She could not miss the chance. She needed water for the children, for dining and cooking, to wash and clean and bathe. She planned to bring Sabina to the hospital after she could assure water for her family. This kind of thing that happens when you live in absolute poverty, when in hierarchy of needs, all basic and essential must compete with each other, since you can only choose one at a time, water or the health of your child. And it's important for all of us to see clearly the rotten fruit of poverty and violence. It's not just about smashed storefronts. Well, time to take a call. Yes, you're on the air with Father Ed.
Father, at one time you had a program, live presentation, that was entitled Father Tolton.
Oh, yeah, Father Tolton. It was a story about slave to priest, the first black priest in the United States, where people who tried to get him into the seminary, but he couldn't because no seminary would accept him. So he finally went to Rome to become a priest. And he thought that he was going to end up going to Africa because he was black, but his cardinal told him, no, you've got to go back to your parish and go back to Quincy, Illinois. And he did go back, and he did. And what happened was when he went back there, the black Protestant ministry hated him because he was bringing blacks to the Catholic Church. And the whites hated him because he was bringing blacks to the white church. And he was there for a great time. And the white priests didn't like him because he was such a good preacher. And he was attracting others, not only blacks, but whites also, into his church. So he went to his pastor one day and said, "They're going to kill me." And they said, "Well, we better transfer you." So he went from Quincy, Illinois, to Chicago. And there are 27,000 slaves that after the Civil War that moved to Chicago. That's why you have such a high attendance of blacks in Chicago. And because he worked in a tobacco factory when he was young, his lungs were ruined. And even though he was doing a great job in Chicago, he died on the streets because of his lungs. And we have this show now. I got it lined up in October. I'll have it at St. Paul's in Bristol. I'll have it at Mercy's High School in, in Middletown. I have it in Notre Dame in West Haven. I have it in Immaculate Conception in Danbury. I have it in Colby High School in Bridgeport. Those are some of the schools that I'll have it in October. So I'm looking forward to. I had this show already, and the people loved it. So I'm bringing it back. And what it does.
Is it a true story?
Yeah, it's a true story. In fact, this priest, Father Tolton, he's just been not canonized, but he's been found beatified, the step before canonization. So he's going to be the first black priest in the United States and the first black priest who's going to be canonized. Yeah, he had a terrible life. His father died during the war because he was fighting for the North, and then his mother and him had to leave the South and travel all the way up to Quincy, Illinois, where he almost got killed by a lot of white people. The war was over, but the hatred was not over. So it's really an exciting live production of our future saint. I call him Saint already, Saint Augustine Tolton. So if you ever have a chance, we'll put the dates in the paper in October where the places will be. And the Father Nadali Good News Fund is sponsoring it. So it's going to cost about $30,000 for all the shows that I have. I have them for the kids, and I have it also in the evening for the adults. So if you're free and you're close to any of those cities, give me a call on this telephone, and I'll be very happy to tell you exactly where to go. I love to tell the people where to go myself.
All right, Will. I think you just lost the audience.
Okay. Thanks for calling.
Goodbye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That was an interesting call. So if anyone else is listening, call me at 860-335-2342. But getting back to that story about Bertina and Sabina, it's a pity that we, as descendants of Noah and Nemeth, do not regret our wars, our genocides, our taking the streets in hatred and destruction. Sabina has to pay the price for this, and there are far too many who also pay with their innocent lives. Pope Francis asks us incessantly to open our eyes at the suffering around us and do everything we can do to invite those who are marginalized to the banquet that is life. It is ever more urgent to do so. It will go soon and light a candle for Sabina's memory. Yes, we talked about abortion. People are taking lives of innocent children. Here's a case where violence and poverty took the life of Sabina. Yes, abortion is a terrible attack on innocent life, but also violence, hatred, and poverty, earthquakes, cyclones, floods, nature. There's so many areas where innocent life is taken. But I think the most tragic way of dying, the way we die, it can be terrible. An abortion is terrible. But death itself is not terrible. Death is the doorway, the graduation to eternal life. Yes, I feel badly for the child is taken, because we had, 40 million abortions last year, and there are future priests there, future mothers, future doctors, future lawyers, future nurses, future carpenters, future electricians that we need so badly today, because we don't have enough manpower to work with our hands. Yes, many of those could have been great contributors to our country and to their families. So a saint has a past. Yes, a lot of these mothers have turned out to be saints because of the past. A good example is Dorothy Day. She had an abortion, and she's one of our great saints. And St. Mary of Egypt, who was a prostitute, after she had an abortion, she went into that direction, but she turned out to be a saint. Yes, evil can be overcome by love. Evil can be overcome by faith. And I'm thinking of someone you know in your life who had an abortion, and pray for her. Like when a person comes to confession, I say to them, God has forgiven you. Now you have to ask God for the grace to forgive yourself. Yes, God is love, so God is all forgiving. But so often, people never can forgive themselves because of guilt, because of sadness, because of pride. How could I have ever done that? We all are sinners. But today's the first day of the rest of your life. And whatever it's been, today is the first day of the rest of your life. If you live in the past will destroy the present. And if you bring the past into the present, then the present doesn't exist for you, just the past. But the only place where God exists is in the present, not in the future. He's not in the past. God is only, because Jesus said, I am who am. I am in the present. I'm sent in the present. God is only in the present. So I'm asking you, if you have time, give me a call. We still have a minute or so. Call me at 860-335-2342. But I ask you to think about those women right now today, somewhere in the world, like in China, where they killed girls, girl babies, and let them live. But now they have nature took its course. There are now many more men than women, and men now who are turning around and searching for women, and they're none. So they're bringing women from Vietnam and other countries because there are not enough women. And with 1.3 billion Chinese, yet, yes, they don't have enough. So before I end, I ask you to pray with me. Pray with those who are thinking about abortion. Pray with those who have an abortion. Pray for all those who are dying like Sabina because of violence, because of war, and because of poverty. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Take care. Remember, God loves you, and your mate is God's image and likeness, so you are loved. And God says to you right now, I love you more today than yesterday, less today than tomorrow. If you have any, if you'd like to talk to me after the show, just call me on my cell phone, 860-335-2342. 860-335-2342. And next week, I'll show you another part of the abortion, the actual animated presentation of each semester of abortion. Take care, God bless you, and good night.